Hi, I'm Charlie Allen. I'm a Journey 8 guide and a licensed psychotherapist here in Venice, California. And today I'd like to share with you some thoughts on this psychological principle of surrender. Right? We hear all the time, we often hear, surrender, let go or be dragged, stop fighting. But what does this actually mean? And perhaps even more importantly, how can practicing this psychological principle of surrender, how can it help us to lead happier, healthier, and more meaningful lives? A place to begin is with a simple definition. And in this context, surrender refers to the military term to stop fighting or to stop resisting. Not so much in a physical sense, but more in a psychological one. You might say surrender as a mental attitude of acceptance. And in what we're talking about, surrender and acceptance, these two psychological principles, they go hand in hand. Now we know that practicing surrender and acceptance is easier said than done, especially in those very difficult times of life. Accepting the loss of a loved one, accepting illness, pain, failure, financial insecurity. Right? We all know that it can be very, very difficult to practice acceptance and surrender in all of the different areas of our life. But we can look to the 12-step recovery programs for a wonderful expression of this idea and a way of practicing this principle in our lives. This is from page 417 of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, also known as the Big Book. Acceptance is the answer to all of my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life, unacceptable to me, and I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as being exactly the way it is supposed to be in that moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept my life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitudes. Living life on life's terms means accepting the reality of the conditions and the circumstances of our lives. As the great novelist Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist, wrote, "It's best to accept life as it really is and not as I imagined it to be." So we see that the practice of acceptance and surrender means living more and more in the reality of one's own life and not as we imagine life to be, and not in a state of denial of the reality of life. I hope that this talk on the psychological principles and practices of acceptance and surrender is helpful to you. And I thought I might make a suggestion on another way that we can practice acceptance and surrender. And we might speak and consider the words of the theologian Reinhold Niebuhr, who wrote what is commonly known as the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, and see you next time.